Welcome back, everyone. In our last module, we literally looked under the hood to see exactly how your exercising muscles produce energy at the cellular level. We dug into all those metabolic pathways that keep the body moving. But today we're taking the next logical step in this explainer. We are looking at the specific nutrition required to actually fuel that cellular engine. I mean, you can't run a high-performance machine on an empty tank, right? So let's completely break down the science of sports nutrition.
To kick things off, let's actually define what we're talking about here. Sports nutrition is basically the practice of applying research findings to improve both an athlete's performance and their recovery. You can think of it like this. Your genetic endowment, your inherited body size and shape, along with your physical training, well, those things build the engine. They determine the absolute potential of your machine. But nutrition is the fuel. It's the premium gas that ultimately dictates exactly how well that engine is going to run when race day actually arrives.
So here's our game plan for today's explainer. First up, fueling the muscle engine. Then we'll get into calculating massive energy needs. After that, we'll tackle carbohydrates, the primary fuel, and we'll wrap up by unpacking the whole carb-loading debate. Okay, let's dive right into this.
Part 1. Fueling the muscle engine.
Now, the biggest mental shift we have to make right out of the gate is moving away from just basic daily eating habits. General health nutrition, that focuses on everyday wellness and basic maintenance. It's really just about warding off disease and keeping a solid baseline of health. Sports nutrition, on the other hand, is laser-focused. It's all about performance optimization and rapid recovery. It's a highly specialized approach where literally every single calorie and nutrient has a very specific, functional job to do to get the absolute most out of the human body.
And, of course, because every single body is different, no two athletes are identical. Their specific nutritional requirements are dictated by a huge range of variables. First off, you've got physical characteristics. Things like age, sex, height, weight, and overall body composition. That plays a massive role. Second, training variables. I mean, are they doing short, explosive sprints, or are they out there doing long, slow-distance running? And how often? Then third, we have external factors. What are the environmental conditions they're training in? What are their current dietary habits like? All of these elements mash together to dictate a completely unique nutritional profile for that specific person.
Which brings us to Section 2, calculating massive energy needs.
To really grasp the sheer scale of these energy needs, let's look at an extreme but absolutely fascinating example, the Michael Phelps protocol. During his peak Olympic training, Michael Phelps was in the pool swimming over 50 miles a week. To sustain that kind of insane, mind-boggling output, he burned roughly 12,000 kilocalories a day. 12,000! So how did he actually get all that fuel into his system? Well, he was literally eating entire whole pizzas and massive 5-egg omelets on a daily basis just to keep up with the burn. It is a phenomenal anomaly for sure, but it perfectly highlights just how much energy a high-performing human engine can churn through.
But let's bring it back to academic reality for your more typical high-level endurance athletes. If an athlete is doing aerobic training for more than 90 minutes a day, they need significantly more energy just to maintain their pre-training weight. For males, the baseline math requires at least 50 kilocalories per kilogram of body weight per day. For females, that recommendation sits right around 45 to 50 kilocalories per kilogram per day. This isn't extra. This is the absolute baseline required just to keep the body functioning optimally under that kind of stress.
But here's the thing. Just doing the math on paper isn't enough. You have to continually assess adequacy in the real world. Athletes really need to track their intake, maybe using apps or by closely monitoring their body composition. Because if an athlete starts losing weight, or worse, losing lean muscle mass during a hard training block, that is a massive red flag. They absolutely must increase their food consumption to get back to their pre-training weight. If they don't, the body will essentially start eating its own engine to find the energy it desperately needs. And nobody wants that.
Moving on to Section 3, carbohydrates, the primary fuel. Now, thinking back to the metabolic pathways we covered in our previous modules, you already know that carbohydrates are the body's absolute preferred source for quick energy. Well, in sports nutrition, we have to constantly be on guard against glycogen depletion. This is exactly what it sounds like, simply running out of stored carbohydrates in the muscles and the liver. When you hear endurance athletes talk about suddenly hitting the wall, this is exactly what they're describing. They have completely emptied their stored fuel tank and their performance just plummets.
So the crucial point here is that to maintain adequate glycogen levels, athletes who are training, say, 1 to 3 hours a day generally need about 6 to 10 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight every single day. And honestly, this can easily be achieved through a solid diet rich in grains,
dairy, vegetables, and fruits.
However, knowing the target number is really only half the battle. The when is just as important as the how much. And this brings us to a really fascinating concept: nutrient timing. Think about it. You can't just dump all that fuel into the tank right before the starting gun goes off and expect the engine to perform smoothly, right?
Let's actually walk chronologically through these precise targets. Pre-event, so about 1 to 4 hours before, the goal is to top off those glycogen stores with 1 to 4 grams per kilogram of body weight. You're thinking low-fat, high-carb foods here, like bagels or pasta. Then during prolonged activity, the goal completely shifts. Now it's about delaying exhaustion. Athletes need about 30 to 60 grams per hour, which is exactly why you see them squeezing those little concentrated sports gels into their mouths mid-race. Finally, post-event, the focus pivots to rapid recovery. They need to hit 1.0 to 1.2 grams per kilogram per hour for about 4 to 6 hours to rapidly restore those depleted glycogen levels.
Which leads us to our final section, the carb loading debate.
I'm sure you've likely heard the term carbohydrate loading thrown around. Formally, this is defined as a technique used to manipulate physical activity and diet to completely maximize muscle glycogen stores before a major event. Basically, for decades, athletes have been trying to sort of hack their body's glycogen storage capacity to ensure they have an unnaturally full tank on race day.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how the technique has actually evolved over the years. The original method, it was incredibly taxing. It involved this brutal depletion phase of really intense exercise to just completely empty the muscles, which was then followed by an aggressive, very high carbohydrate intake. Honestly, it left athletes feeling pretty terrible before the race even started. Today, thankfully, science has given us the modified method. This involves simply tapering or, gradually reducing exercise intensity while steadily increasing carbohydrate intake over several days. It achieves that exact same supercompensation, but without all the brutal exhaustion.
But we have to remember that carb loading comes with a physical cost. For every single gram of glycogen stored, the body also incorporates about 3 grams of water directly into the muscle tissue. We call this the weight factor. A totally 100% maxed out fuel tank literally weighs the athlete down with extra water. And for some runners or cyclists, having to carry that extra water weight early in the race, it can actually negate the benefits of having that extra fuel in the first place.
Because of that water weight penalty, a lot of modern sports science experts are actually shifting away from extreme loading entirely. The modern alternative is honestly a lot simpler. Just maintain a consistently high carbohydrate diet throughout your training, and then rely heavily on consuming carbohydrates during the event itself. Remember those gels and drinks we just talked about? That's where they shine. It keeps the athlete feeling lighter and completely avoids the physical stress of a strict loading protocol.
So, there we have it. We have successfully fueled the muscle engine. We know how to calculate the massive calories required, and we know exactly how and when to fill that glycogen tank with carbohydrates. But I want to leave you with this critical question. We've filled the tank, sure, but what about repairing the engine itself? I mean, all that high-intensity work causes actual structural damage to the muscle tissue. So how does the body rebuild? Well, that is exactly what we are going to tackle in our next module on the fat and protein needs of athletes. I'll see you there.